Hi Reddit. I'm 32 now, and there's something I've never talked about publicly. Mostly because even after all these years, it still doesn't feel real. 6 years ago, my sister Leah disappeared. Not just lost contact, disappeared, vanished. On her wedding day. Dressed in white, hair done, makeup perfect. She was supposed to walk down the aisle at 2 p.m. By 1:45, she was nowhere to be found. By 2 o'clock, her phone was off. By 2:30, her dress was found crumpled in the corner of the bridal suite, and all hell broke loose. I was her maid of honor. We'd just finished taking photos together less than an hour before. I thought she was just taking a minute to herself. I figured she was nervous, maybe crying a little. But when she didn't respond to a single knock, and her phone went straight to voicemail, I knew something was wrong. At first, everyone assumed she'd gotten cold feet. That she ran. The groom, Colin, looked shocked but tried to play it off. He made a weak joke about dramatic exits, but his face said otherwise. My parents were frantic. I don't even remember most of that day, it's just a blur of police questions, cancelled flowers, and my mother screaming into the phone. The search went on for months. There were flyers, news reports, Facebook groups, even psychics getting involved. But Leah was just gone. No money taken from her bank account. No activity on her credit cards. No passport movement. No body. Eventually, the cops labeled it a voluntary disappearance. But I never believed that. Leah and I were close. Best friends since we were little. She'd never ghost me. Not like that. Not without a reason. I tried everything to find her. I spent years chasing dead ends, cameras, emails, obscure clues that people on Reddit thought looked promising. Nothing ever panned out. Then, 3 weeks ago, I got an email from a burner address. No subject. No text. Just one attachment. A video. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the email like it might explode. The sender's address was complete gibberish, just random letters and numbers. No name. No signature. No context. Just a .mov file, 37 seconds long. I must have sat there for 10 minutes with my finger hovering over the trackpad, stomach in knots. My hands were shaking. For a second, I wondered if this was a prank. Or worse, someone messing with me for attention. I'd been part of some online forums over the years about Leah's case. Maybe someone found me through one of those. But my gut told me otherwise. So I clicked it. It started with static. Then the camera jolted upward, like it was being placed down on a table. The room came into focus slowly, a dimly lit, wooden space, maybe a cabin or a basement. There was a window behind her, but the blinds were drawn tight. And then there she was. Leah. Her hair was longer. Darker, maybe dyed. Her face looked thinner, more tired, older than it should have after just 6 years. But it was her. No doubt. She leaned forward into the frame and whispered, "If you got this, I'm alive. But I can't come back." That was the first thing she said. I replayed that line over and over. She kept glancing off camera, as if someone else was in the room. Her voice was low, rushed, like she didn't have much time. She didn't say where she was, or why she disappeared. Just that she didn't leave by choice. That phrase hit me like a punch to the chest. I didn't leave by choice. Then she said my name. Not just hey or hi sis. She said my full name. Twice. Like she was trying to prove it was really her, like she knew I might not believe it. And then she looked into the lens and said, "I need you to find the yellow envelope in the attic. It's still there, in Mom's old sewing kit. It'll explain everything. But you can't tell anyone. Not even Colin." The screen went black. No goodbye. No timestamp. No location metadata. Nothing else. Just those words. And suddenly, the search was back on. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the video over and over, looking for any tiny clue, something in the background, her clothes, the sound of her voice. I even tried scrubbing the audio through some filter app to see if I could hear anything else. Nothing. Just that same message, burned into my brain. By 6 a.m., I was in my parents' attic. It was cold and smelled like dust and old wood. Everything looked untouched, like a museum of forgotten things, boxes labeled with birthdays, Christmas decorations, baby clothes. I hadn't been up there since Leah went missing. Not even once. My parents couldn't bear to throw anything away, but they also couldn't bring themselves to look. I found the sewing kit after about 30 minutes, tucked under a stack of old board games. It was pink with faded roses, the kind of thing you'd expect to find in a grandma's house. I remembered watching Mom use it when we were kids, mending our uniforms before school. It took me a second to open it. My hands were stiff, like my body already knew what I was about to see. And there it was. A yellow envelope. No name. No markings. Just sealed shut and thick, like there were papers inside. I sat down on the attic floor and peeled it open. Inside was a stack of printouts, photos, bank records, and 2 pieces of paper that looked like journal entries. Everything in my body screamed not to believe it, but the moment I started reading, it all came together. Leah had been planning to leave. But not because of cold feet. Not because she didn't want to get married. But because she was being watched. There was one name that kept appearing across the documents. A man I didn't recognize. And next to his name, in every margin, Leah had scribbled the same word. Dangerous. The name written on nearly every page was David C. Rowan. It didn't ring any bells. Not from Leah's life, not from our town, not from anything I could remember. But she hadn't just written his name, she'd circled it, underlined it, written dangerous next to it in big, frantic letters. On one page she even scratched in all caps, "If anything happens to me, it's him." My heart dropped. There were screenshots of emails, messages between Leah and someone else. I couldn't tell who she was writing to, but the tone was panicked. She mentioned being followed. Her car being moved. Her door found unlocked when she swore she'd locked it. She said someone had hacked into her phone. That she couldn't talk to Colin about it, because she didn't know who to trust. And then there was the bank record. A transfer of $30,000 from an unknown source to Leah's personal account, dated 3 weeks before her wedding. The note on it just said, "For your silence." I sat there in the attic, surrounded by insulation and old Halloween decorations, trying to make sense of it. None of it fit. My sister wasn't involved in anything shady. She was a high school counselor. She volunteered at the local library. She couldn't even lie about stealing cookies without cracking a smile. But that money? Those emails? That name? It all pointed to something else entirely. There was one more thing inside the envelope, a flash drive taped to the back of the journal page. I didn't even wait, I ran home and plugged it in. There was only one file. A photo. It was grainy, night vision style. But it clearly showed Leah standing outside somewhere, maybe a parking lot, talking to a man in a dark coat. Her body language looked tense, like she didn't want to be there. His face wasn't completely visible, but I could see just enough. And here's the part that knocked the breath out of me. It wasn't a stranger. I recognized the man. He was at her wedding. I couldn't breathe. The man in the photo wasn't a distant stranger or someone from Leah's past. He was at the wedding, on the guest list. I even remembered shaking his hand. His name was Martin Hale. Colin's uncle. Not by blood, he'd married into the family. Older, maybe in his early 50s, quiet, always kind of lurking in the background. One of those people you don't pay attention to until you realize they've been in every photo, every room, every conversation, just never quite in it. I remembered seeing him that morning, hovering around the bridal suite. I'd thought maybe he was just being helpful, delivering coffee, helping the florist unload the van. But now, thinking back, I realized he always seemed to be watching Leah. Not in an affectionate way. In a calculated, measuring way. And now he was in this photo, meeting her in secret weeks before the wedding. The timestamp on the file was 2:14 a.m., 15 days before she vanished. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the pieces were lining up in ways I couldn't ignore. I spent the next 2 days doing nothing but digging into Martin. There wasn't much online, his social media was locked down, and his job as a consultant didn't link to anything specific. But I found something else, something Leah couldn't have known back then. A woman named Vanessa Quinn. She went missing in 2009. Different state. Different circumstances. She was 28. Engaged. Disappeared 2 weeks before her wedding. Her case never went anywhere, but her sister had posted on an old true crime blog, begging for attention. Said her sister was last seen at a private event hosted by her fiancé's extended family. A reunion. There was one group photo on that blog. And standing near the back, looking away from the camera, was Martin Hale. My skin went cold. This wasn't about cold feet or money or secrets. This was about something much worse. And Leah had known it. I stared at the screen for hours. Martin Hale. A name that had meant nothing 6 years ago now sat like a threat in my hands. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat there going over everything, what I'd missed, what Leah had seen, what she'd tried to warn me about in that 37-second video. By 3 a.m., I made a decision I'd sworn I never would. I called Colin. My sister's almost husband. The man left at the altar. The man my family had quietly blamed. The one I hadn't spoken to in over 5 years. To be honest, I didn't even know if he'd answer. But he did. And he sounded exactly the same. Surprised. Hesitant. Quiet. I didn't waste time with small talk. I told him I needed to ask about his Uncle Martin. The line went dead quiet. Not a single breath. Just silence, thick and loaded. Then he asked why. So I told him everything. The video, the envelope, the photo. When I said Martin's name, something shifted in his voice. I could hear it crack. He didn't deny anything. He didn't even sound surprised. What he said next still makes me sick to remember. He told me there was something off about Martin. He said Leah had brought it up once, just once, after Martin offered to pay for the honeymoon as a family gift. She said it made her uncomfortable, but when Colin pressed, she dropped it. Said it was fine. Said she was just being paranoid. But after she disappeared, Colin said he started having nightmares. Dreams where Leah was calling out, but he couldn't reach her. And in every dream, Martin was standing there, just watching. He never told anyone. Said it sounded insane. Said he didn't want to pile grief on top of tragedy. But now? Now he said he wasn't sure what was insane anymore. Then, almost as an afterthought, he told me something that made my skin crawl. The day after Leah vanished, just one day later, Martin left the country. Said it was for business. Didn't come back for 3 months. And nobody thought to question it. After I hung up with Colin, I felt like my brain was rewiring itself. Martin wasn't just weird. He was missing, conveniently, right after Leah vanished. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense, not in a good way, but in that cold, stomach-drop way that makes you feel like you've been living in a lie. But I still didn't have answers. I needed more than a gut feeling and a single blurry photo. I needed to know what Leah had gotten herself into, and what she had tried to leave behind for me. So I went back to the yellow envelope. I reread every word, every scribble. Then I noticed something. On the back of one page, barely visible, written in tiny, shaky handwriting, like she didn't want anyone else to see it, was a 6-digit string. Hob 314. It looked like a password. But to what? I tore through old belongings, trying to remember what Leah still had back then, what she used. And then I remembered, she had an old laptop. A beat-up silver thing she never upgraded. My parents had packed it away after her disappearance, too heartbroken to go through her things. I found it in a box in their basement, still in its cloth sleeve. The moment I pressed the power button, the screen lit up. And there it was, the password prompt. My hands were sweating as I typed it in, HOB 314. The screen blinked, then opened. Her desktop was like a time capsule. Photos from our childhood, a wedding checklist, a half-written email to her maid of honor, me. But buried in one folder labeled recipes was a file that didn't belong. July proof. I opened it. And my heart started pounding. It was an audio recording, exactly 9 minutes long. And Leah was talking. She sounded scared. Like she was reading a script she didn't want to say out loud. Her voice wavered. She kept saying things like, if anything happens, and you won't believe this, but... Then she dropped a name. Not Martin. Someone else. A woman. And what she said next turned the entire story upside down. I listened to the recording 4 times before I could even process it. In the file, Leah was whispering, like she was afraid someone might overhear, even while talking to a laptop mic in a locked room. She said the name clearly. No hesitation. No nicknames. Amanda Hastings. My chest tightened. Amanda was our cousin. She'd grown up just a few towns over. Leah and Amanda were practically inseparable in their teens, weekend sleepovers, long road trips, matching charm bracelets. I remembered thinking Amanda would be her maid of honor, not me. But they'd stopped talking around the time Leah got engaged. I never really understood why. Leah just said, we grew apart, and left it at that. I didn't push. Now I knew why. In the recording, Leah said Amanda had introduced her to Martin. Not at a family event. Not by accident. But through something Leah called the club. That was her word. Club. She didn't explain it much, she just kept repeating it in this quiet, scared voice. She said Amanda invited her to a private retreat, something spiritual, something secret. And that Martin was in charge of the inner circle. The more she talked, the worse it got. She mentioned meetings, pledges, control. And then she said this. Once you're in, you don't get out unless they let you. And I know too much. I think they're watching me now. I don't think I'm safe anymore, not with the wedding coming up. I paused the recording right there. That was when I realized. Leah hadn't just disappeared to escape something. She was forced to disappear because someone didn't want her to talk. And that someone might have been our own family. I didn't sleep. Again. I kept asking myself the same question. How do you confront someone who might have helped erase your sister from the world, and still has your family's birthday photos on their fridge? Amanda wasn't a stranger. She wasn't some shadowy figure in the background. She was blood. She braided my hair at sleepovers. She cried when Leah got engaged. She sang at the wedding rehearsal. But Leah had named her. On a private recording, hidden under a fake folder in a locked laptop. So I had to know. I sent Amanda a message that morning, casual and light. Hey, remember when you and Leah used to do those girls-only weekends? I found an old photo of you two from one of those retreats. So random. I've been thinking about her a lot lately. She replied within 5 minutes. Send it to me. I miss her too. Not a day goes by. I didn't send the photo because there wasn't one. But her response gave me what I needed. She was still pretending, still lying. So I called her. I told her I'd been cleaning out my parents' house and found some of Leah's old things. Said it brought back memories. Said I remembered her talking about some retreat she and Amanda went on. Then I paused, just a beat. Amanda didn't flinch. She laughed. Said something like, "Oh God, yeah, that weird yoga thing? That was ages ago." But I could hear the edge in her voice. She was choosing her words too carefully. Like she was reaching for the most harmless version of the truth. I kept playing dumb. I asked where it was. Who ran it? She said she couldn't remember, just some guru type she thought was creepy. But then she said something strange. I warned Leah not to go back. Told her it was too intense. I think it freaked her out. I didn't say anything. Because in Leah's recording, she said Amanda was the one who convinced her to go back. That slip-up told me everything. Amanda was lying. Not to protect herself, but to protect someone else. And then came the part one wasn't ready for. She asked me, casually, sweetly, "You haven't been talking to anyone online about Leah again, have you?" I froze. She said it like a joke. But it wasn't. It was a warning. After that call with Amanda, I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. It wasn't just that she lied. It was how easily she did it. The warmth in her voice. The way she asked about the forums, like it was a harmless question, just family concern. But I knew what it really meant. They were watching again. And they knew I was digging. I backed up everything, Leah's video, the emails, the audio file, even screenshots of my texts with Amanda. I put them on a secure cloud, a password-protected drive, and mailed a copy to a friend I trust with my life, just in case. And then I did something I never imagined I'd do. I messaged the burner email that sent me the video. All I wrote was, "I saw it. I believe you. What do I do now?" No reply. Hours passed, then a day, then 2. Nothing. And just when I started to think the silence would go on forever, someone knocked on my door. It was around 8 p.m., dark outside. I hadn't told anyone where I was staying, not even my parents. I froze. My heart felt like it was beating in my throat. Whoever it was, they weren't knocking like a neighbor. It was slow. Measured. I crept toward the door, phone clutched in my hand, finger hovering over 911. And then I heard it. A whisper, barely audible, just on the other side. "It's me." I opened the door. And there she was. Leah. Thinner. Pale. Eyes darting like a hunted animal. But alive. Real. She didn't hug me. She didn't cry. She just stepped inside, looked around like she was checking for exits, and locked the door behind her. Then she turned to me and said, "We don't have much time. They know you opened the envelope." And that's where this part of the story ends. Because what came next? I'm still living it. And if you don't hear from me again, just know. Leah didn't vanish. She was hidden. And now that she's back, they want both of us gone.